Hi, everyone. Welcome to Boot Camp Celebration, and thank you for tuning in tonight. We are excited and very pumped to present what we have for you this evening. So Boot Camp Celebration, what is this? Well, this is one of the programs that's offered under a2Tech360, an event that basically is it's a week-long event series that is sponsored, given to us by Arbor Spark. And really, the idea with a2Tech360, it's celebrating Ann Arbor's ecosystem, where we're looking at the places where innovation happens, and we're celebrating a lot of those moments where conversations, entrepreneurship comes together, to have those awesome conversations, the experiences, the connections, everything that our ecosystem has to offer. And for Bootcamp Celebration, we then focus a lot of what that energy is into thinking about the beginnings of where ideas come from. An idea on the back of a beverage napkin, an experience we had as a young child, and we kind of think about, what is this idea? What is this problem? And what is it going to solve? And through the Bootcamp series, we have a number of teams that go through a rigorous 8 to 10 week experience where they are going through customer discovery, talking to people about their problem, getting feedback, talking with mentors from our community and other entrepreneurs to really carve out, what is this idea going to be and how is it going to evolve, to really kind of figure out how do they de-risk themselves and strategize how to be a successful startup from the ground up. Today we celebrate those entrepreneurs who are developing those very young ideas, and we get to hear their pitches or their stories of what they've created. From that, we have a pitch competition, and the pitch competition is broken down into 5 minutes of the pitches, and then from there we get to hear 5 minutes from the judges asking the startups questions, and we get to kind of see some of their conversations. There are 4 pitches this evening, and with that, we have a very great panel of judges today. Our first is Ben Bernstein from ID Ventures. He is part of the ID team, helping them prepare teams for investment and managing the investment process. We also have, well, actually, I'll let Ben introduce a little bit more about himself.
Sure. Thanks, Margarita. Ben Bernstein, principal at ID Ventures. I've been with ID Ventures for about 1.5 years. We are the most active seed stage investor in the state of Michigan, so we have over 100 portfolio companies active across 3 funds. We are often the first institutional check in companies' financing round. We're industry agnostic, so we are kind of in the healthcare space, software, B2B, SaaS technologies, consumer, mobility, anything that the state has to offer. Happy to be here, happy to see the pitches, and excited for the event.
Thanks, Ben. Next, we have Bill Mayer, who is actually the vice president of our entrepreneurial services team. And I'll actually just let him kind of give his little spiel.
Thanks, Margarita. I'm Bill Mayer. I lead the entrepreneur services team here at Ann Arbor Spark. And in my background, I've either founded or been involved in 5 startups myself. And I've also been involved in both the public equity and debt markets as well as private capital markets. So I joined Spark, roughly about 10 years ago. And so my team is excellent. They do great work. And really the mission of Spark is to help companies like you, not only in the beginning, but as you grow, and eventually someday, you'll probably outgrow the entrepreneur services team and start working with our business development team. Companies like, Duo Security, Lamasoft, they've made that transition successfully. So I'm just absolutely thrilled that Ann Arbor has such a strong ecosystem of support for entrepreneurs. Not all communities have that. So we're really lucky that we can do things like this. And a2Tech360 is just a celebration of all the work that you all are doing. So thank you for being here tonight and going through the process.
Thanks, Bill. And our third and final judge is Prem Bogata, who is joining us virtually. He is coming to us, he's the director of Michigan Rise, and he's been in our ecosystem for quite a while. I'll let him introduce himself.
Thanks, Margarita. Good evening, everyone. My name is Prem Bodagala. I'm a director at Red Cedar Ventures and Michigan Rise, 2 wholly owned subsidiaries of MSU Foundation. Our team manages the pre-seed fund on behalf of the state of Michigan. We are the third iteration of the pre-seed fund. We launched about a year ago. In the last year, we've invested in 28 companies, early stage companies. We've deployed about $4 million that has gone on to leverage $110 million in dilutive and non-dilutive funding. Like Invest Detroit, we are sector agnostic. We invest across the state of Michigan. I personally have been involved in the Michigan early stage entrepreneurial ecosystem for the past 10 years. Got my start in West Michigan at a fund called Michigan Accelerator Fund 1, worked at Invest Michigan in Detroit, and now working with Michigan Rise and Red Cedar Ventures in East Lansing. It's a pleasure to be here with you all.
Thanks, Prem. And next, I was a little silly. I forgot to introduce myself. So my name is Dr. Margarita Hernandez, and actually I work with Bill. He's part of our team. I am Margarita Hernandez, and I have been working at Ann Arbor Spark for 2 years now, and I've had the pleasure of actually working with another great individual who I'll introduce to the stage. Her name is Lee Gorman, and she runs our boot camp program. She's been doing this for a few years now and has lots of entrepreneurship experience, and we always hear very positive things, as you all can actually talk about here at some point. But I'll welcome Lee to the stage. Hi, ma'am. And I'll let you kind of take over from here.
All right. Thank you, Margarita, and thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. Boot camp, as Margarita said, is an 8 to 10 week intensive program to help entrepreneurs determine whether they actually have a viable business model and what to do going forward if they do. And the 4 teams that are presenting tonight are the 4 top teams from our cohort of 12 that just went through over this summer. And I will be introducing each of them. As Margarita said, my name is Lee Gorman. In addition to running the boot camp, I also do intake consulting for Spark, and I do other things in the ecosystem, which I've been part of for about 15 years. And boot camp has always been my favorite part of it because we see such great development of the teams. So with that, the process tonight is going to be each team will have 5 minutes to present with 5 slides, where they are with their business, what the business is about, and what they're about to do after boot camp. And then the judges will have 5 minutes for Q&A, and then I'll present the next team. So that's 5 minutes for the presentation, 5 minutes for the Q&A, and we'll go from there. So our first team, Imagine Chat, Christine White will be presenting for Imagine Chat. Now, I love this. Christine and Gertha, her partner, said to me very early on, we want to be challenged. We want you to ask the hard questions. And I fell in love because sometimes entrepreneurs don't want the hard questions. They just want praise. And they said, no, we want you to challenge us. So we did. We challenged them, and they stepped up. They really did a great job with the customer discovery, and I will let Christine tell you all about it.
Thank you, Lee. Starting? Okay. I'm Christine, the CEO of Imagine Chat. Here with me tonight is Gerta, our COO/CFO. And not here today is David, our CTO. When my daughter Anna was 10, she became a big sister. And that came with a lot of big emotions. During these emotional times, I was often very busy and didn't know what to do or even say in those moments. And let's be honest, who hasn't experienced something similar? It's critical for kids to have a safe and comforting person to share and explore their emotions with, someone who is always readily available. So it got me thinking, what's true across the board for parents and kids of all backgrounds that unifies them and really fills that gap unlike anything else? Characters. Superhero and fairy tale characters are universal and transcend generations. We tested a proof of concept pilot with a select group of families, and what we found was that when kids were given this opportunity to really interact with these characters, to vent to or celebrate with, they became incredibly engaged. Through a FaceTime-style video call, Imagine Chat's mobile app is helping kids explore their emotions in a way that's meaningful and impactful. But best of all, it's on demand. Imagine Chat uses responsive skill-building dialogue that promotes emotional exploration, providing kids with an outlet to share their highest highs and everyday lows with someone they believe is live and in front of their screen. Think visual chatbot. It's an app that parents will find immediately valuable for their child's development and entertainment. In August, we engaged developers to build the beta version of the app, which will be available for parents. In August, we engaged developers to build the beta version of the app, which will be available for users to test in late October, with the intent to launch the full-scale app a few short months following. We'll be featuring familiar characters who are in the public domain, such as Cinderella, as well as our own original characters. And seasonal rotating characters will create long-term stickiness, driving parents and kids back to the app time and again. Our go-to market strategy will capitalize on targeting millennial parents through social media ads, influencer marketing, and app store optimization. The app itself will be available for parents to purchase as a monthly subscription. The market potential here is significant. There are over 32 million kids just between the ages of 3 and 7 in the US alone. Our goal is to capture as much of that market as possible while maintaining lean and low-cost content creation and production. Similar startups such as ABC Mouse yield an average of 2.5 million monthly visitors. Growing demand has led that company to raise over $450 million in 3 rounds in less than 5 years. Our growth plans include character expansion, a potential partnership with Disney or Marvel, as well as building out a suite of characters who will adapt and grow as the child does. Our founding team is composed of stalwarts in early childhood development and with extensive experience in educational gaming and the building and scaling of startup technology, as well as a deep expertise in business operations, legal, and mergers and acquisitions. In addition to B2C, we plan on partnering with institutions such as primary schools and autism centers. We also have a charitable partnership in the works with a phenomenal organization who happens to be one of Disney's 3 annual charities. Together with our team of conversational designers and early childhood specialists, Imagine Chat will provide kids with invaluable social and emotional experience. So, why are we doing this? What's the point? Because we're parents whose own kids triggered the need and the want for the app. Imagine a world where every "I'm too busy right now" turned into an "I'm listening" for an entire generation. Imagine that. Thank you.
Thanks, Christine. That was a great presentation. Can we talk a little bit about what went into building the technology? Is there anything that's kind of proprietary or IP protected that is different from like you mentioned ABC Mouse or any of the other kind of virtual chatbots aimed at this market?
So that's actually part of our value proposition. So all the components that go into this app exist independently, but there's no actual product in the market that combines all 3 of those. So speech-to-text technology, decision trees, as well as the video content and the way it responds to the children and the dialogue that we're using. So it's unique, but at the same time, we haven't found anything that exists. We are working with several patent attorneys. There's potentially something in the works, but there's currently no patent for what we're doing. But it is unique in the combination of the 3 elements.
And you mentioned possible licensing opportunities with major IP holders. What are you presenting in your beta as kind of a hook to get early users interested? If you're kind of going off of your own characters, or kind of what is in place now?
Sure. So for our beta, although we have original characters, we're also there's a realm of characters like what we typically consider Disney characters, like Cinderella. They're actually out there in the open domain for us to use. So Cinderella, princesses, superheroes, and when we did our pilot testing, we realized, to our surprise actually, that kids didn't care if it was our version of Cinderella or the Disney mermaid Ariel. If anything, they loved our version because it was new. It was something exciting for them. So although we're creating new characters, they're also in line with what children are comfortable with and love and have grown attachments to.
Great, thank you.
Okay, nice job, nice job, team. So you mentioned a monthly subscription is your business model. Explain to me what the triggering event is for a parent to realize, I have a problem, I could do better, that's the call to action to start paying you on a monthly basis. Do you do that, or does one of your partners that you mentioned, or one of your affiliates actually recommend you once sort of that trigger has been crossed?
So the element with the partners is our B2B, which is not part of our beta. Our beta is the B2C. So in that case, it's direct marketing to the parents through traditional advertising and other social media type connections to the parents. So the subscription starts out as an opt-out 1 week free trial. And this is actually very common. If you go to your apps in your app store and see how many you're subscribed to, you'll be surprised at how much you're paying for. So it does work. It's a 1 week free trial, and they're automatically subscribed to the product, and then they'll get notifications if they're not using it often saying, hey, Cinderella's been waiting to talk to you for a few weeks. So there's ways to re-engage them, but at the same time, it's a trigger that the parent goes in and gets the app. It's not like recommended by a therapist or anything like that.
Okay, well, thank you for clarifying that it's a B2C sale. Given that, and you're going to leverage advertising, social media, et cetera, to find these paying people, do you have a sense of what your cost to make a sale or acquire a new customer looks like?
Yeah, so we've actually talked to several app marketing companies and did our research, and we found that about $2 to $4 is the typical customer acquisition rate. In our model right now, we're being more conservative and going with $4 to $5 with a decent marketing spend.
Against, do you know the lifetime value of a client?
Yeah, about $17.
17. Thank you.
Christine and Alberta, great presentation.
Thank you.
As the father of a 2-month-old son, just your thoughts on content creation and kind of refreshing your inventory. Like my son, he gets very bored of a toy, one week, and he wants the next thing. Just, could you speak to, how quickly you would need to kind of refresh the content side? And the second part question, what would be the financing need for you to get this beta off the ground and get your first customers?
Sure. Sorry, I swallowed something. I swallowed my own spit wrong. The content creation will be created all at once. But again, as we mentioned, our content creation right now is lean and low cost because we're working with a therapist, an early childhood specialist to vet the scripts. And the way that we are handling the production of those scripts and the actors and filming, we're able to get all of those scripts really produced in one time while being able to account for all of the various things that kids could say and the various responses. So we've really thought out about how to enhance that and how to move that forward for the future. And so right now for the beta version, we'll be rolling out about 18 to 20 scripts or 20 situations.
And building out the beta, we are working with an outside developer and engage them. We're close to being finished and should be able to launch in October with these characters and scripts. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Well done. And thank you, judges, for excellent questions that helped us really understand this business. Our next presenter is Snehal Patel of Hilogenica. Now, Christine talked about developing the Imagine Chat because their parents, they saw a need. Well, Snehal also saw a need because of his background, and he was really devoted to finding out what was the best way forward in boot camp. He did a lot of customer discovery. He figured out where was the best way to approach this and what things he needed to watch out for. And he's continuing in another Spark program now. And I think you'll be very interested in his approach. Snehal, will you please come up?
Thank you so much, Lee, for that kind introduction. And hello, everyone. I'm Snehal Patel. I'm a molecular pathologist and the founder and CEO of Hilogenica. Today, the treatment of cancer patients is informed by sophisticated genetic testing of the patient's tumor sample. The problem is that the interpretation and reporting of genetic testing is laborious and time-consuming. Testing may uncover dozens or even hundreds of mutations, a few of which may have biological or clinical significance. Molecular pathologists at hospital laboratories must painstakingly decipher each mutation one by one. This review can take hours or even days to complete because it requires querying dozens of genetic databases and sifting through a number of scientific manuscripts. Our customer discovery revealed that existing technologies provide varying levels of support to pathologists, mostly in the form of data retrieval. However, for the most part, the integration of this wealth of data is still left to the pathologist. Furthermore, assistance with another major bottleneck in this process, namely patient report generation, still leaves much to be desired. At Hilogenica, we are developing software that will reduce the pathologist's burden from days and hours to minutes. Our cutting-edge AI technology will not only extract relevant data, but integrate that data to provide pathologists with the decision support that they need to quickly and systematically interpret mutations. Our software will automatically generate a draft report specifically tailored to the patient, which is something that none of the existing technologies are doing right now. This report then only needs to be reviewed and possibly tweaked by the pathologist before finalizing. Our two-in-one solution supports pathologists every step of the way by simplifying mutation interpretation and maximizing time savings. For a few $100s per report, we will save pathologists hours of time. While this technology is primarily intended to benefit pathologists, we recognize that patients experience significant stress and anxiety while waiting for their reports. Our ultimate goal is to provide a better patient experience. Hilogenica has made significant strides during boot camp. Our customer discovery is still in progress, but we have already learned a lot. We have captured the interest of 3 hospitals which have offered to beta test our technology. We have captured the interest of a computational oncology company that wants to license our technology in order to boost the predictive capabilities of their technology. And finally, we are in the process of formalizing a partnership with a software development company with expertise in healthcare AI. Year 1 will primarily be devoted to research and development and submitting patent applications, but as early as year 2, we're going to start bringing in revenue. We will begin by marketing our technology to research laboratories on a non-clinical use basis. By year 3, we will market our technology as a clinical reporting service to hospitals. Molecular pathologists at Hilogenica will leverage our technology to rapidly render patient reports for same-day turnaround time. This type of model is going to be useful for those clinical laboratories that want to outsource part or all of their reporting needs because of insufficient pathology expertise in-house. And by year 4, we will have obtained FDA approval for clinical use, and we will provide our technology as a software as a service for those hospitals that want to keep reporting in-house but need that little extra help. This is the Helogenica team. Altogether, we have 30 years of cancer research experience. We have 15 years of molecular diagnostics experience. I am the founder and CEO of Helogenica, and I will provide the leadership and overall direction. My colleague, Dr. Anand Datta, is a molecular pathologist, and he will provide the clinical oversight needed. He will also lead the regulatory submissions. His claim to fame is that he has been a medical director at the National Cancer Institute, and he's a medical director at Quest Diagnostics. He will provide us with the regulatory support that we need. Dr. Brian Spring is a Harvard-trained physicist, and he will provide us with the technical support that we will need. He's also a funded SBIR award winner, and he will help us with the same. I'd like to thank Ann Arbor Spark for the business support, and I thank you for your listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Snell, for that presentation. Very, very interesting company. My first question is, what is Helogenica's approach to building its data engine? Like, what is your source of truth? What are you comparing the tests against?
Yeah, great question. So our source of truth for our AI will be my and Dr. Datta's interpretations based on known literature investigations. So literature that has already confirmed functionally the impact of these mutations in cancer will be serving as the ground truth.
What would be the kind of the end for that number of interpretations?
Yeah, well, so we're shooting for 20,000 mutations.
Thank you. Just there's another very interesting company in Ann Arbor called Genomenon. They're also doing very exciting work in this space. Probably heard of them, but I think there's some overlap between the work you guys are doing and that group. I think would be fantastic for you guys to collaborate as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know their strength is in data retrieval, and they've done some really great stuff with that. And we're kind of on the other end where we want to integrate that data. And I do look forward to having conversations with them in the future.
Thank you.
Thanks, Snehal. Really interesting. Can you give me a little bit of sense on the market size here? How many cancer patients require this genetic testing and these reports? Is that kind of standard for everybody? Or I know that sometimes it's not always genetic testing. It's maybe another prognosis. But how big is the market here?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there are those who believe that every cancer patient deserves to have their tumor profiled. And in the United States, there are about 1.8 million new cancer diagnoses each year. However, right now, the standard of care is to offer tumor profiling to advanced cancer patients as well as select other tumor types. So all lung cancer patients with adenocarcinoma histology should get testing as well. So to make it short, I will say that the number should be somewhere around 0.6 to 0.8 million patients who will get tumor profiling clinically, and all of those patients are going to need clinical interpretation.
And is it your view that your technology would expand the pool because it's increasing throughput and ability of the pathologist to run these reports, or are there other factors that are keeping this from being more widespread?
Yeah, I think part of it has to do with, so this next generation sequencing and genetic testing has been offered for the past decade or so. It's a new technology, right? I'd say 2011 is when people started adopting it clinically. So, I think there's still some education that is needed to let oncologists and other clinicians know to order this test. Unfortunately, patients who deserve testing are not all getting testing. I think that's one major part of it. But I think the other part of it is also that you're absolutely right. The volumes of testing are growing each year, and the volumes are expected to triple by 2028. So there is going to be more need for genetic testing. There's going to be need for doing this more efficiently, for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. So I understand research is your beachhead market, but your secondary market is hospitals. So congratulations and condolences. So can you explain, let's assume that you're successful in the research market. Can you explain how a sale transpires in the healthcare system?
Yeah, that's a great question. So usually the way that as a pathologist, when I'm trying to decide whether I want to buy into a new technology, what I typically do is I will do a head-to-head comparison of multiple technologies. In fact, I did that when I was at the NIH. Of the dozens of companies that are out there, I took the top 4 and I tried them all out. I had them come visit us, give us a demo on how they work. I had a week or a month trial of each of these services, and I decided based on the performance which one I wanted to bring in-house. And for me, it was not really a decision of which one do I like the best. It was like, which one is the least bad of the ones that I'm looking at.
Okay. And the CFO was on board with that?
Yeah, so usually when the medical director of the lab wants to bring something in, the CFO usually goes along with it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Snehal. Well done. We can all see how much homework he has done on this, and he continues at the same pace. Our next team is CultureWell, which will be presented by Sarah Beatty. Sarah came in with this idea, and I thought it was very intuitive from the get-go what the problem is, and she really knew what she was talking about, but had a lot of homework to do, as all our campers did, and she has gone after that and is working to figure out what is the best approach to take and how is she going to get customers, and I will let her tell you all about it. Sarah.
Thanks, Lee. Hey everyone, I am the founder and CEO of CultureWell. My name is Sarah Beatty. Healthcare customers and healthcare clients today are chronically dealing with healthcare-acquired infections. It is a shark bite problem for them. It costs healthcare facilities in the United States $31 billion a year, and they're desperately trying to solve this problem. When a healthcare-acquired infection happens, it's usually the result of a patient coming into a hospital for something as simple or as complicated as a knee replacement surgery. And the healthcare provider may forget to wash their hands, or a surgical tool could be dirty, and that infection gets transferred to the patient. Patients that get healthcare-acquired infections end up staying in the hospital for an additional 9 days. And that causes incredibly low patient satisfaction scores, which affects the hospital's bottom line and ability to retain future patients, as well as a risk to Medicare reimbursement. Hospitals that have the highest infection rates actually can receive 1% to 3% cut across the board for their Medicare reimbursements. So what are hospitals doing about it? They spend money on technology. They do behavioral interventions. And what's really happening is that they're not addressing the root problem, the root cause of the problem. The root cause of the problem is that there are germs on surfaces, and those germs get transferred to providers' hands, and those providers touch the patient, and patients get infected. So CultureWell is here because we've created a technology that allows us to monitor surfaces, air, and water for germs. I want to point out that we don't require any FDA or CLIA regulatory compliance because we are measuring the environment, we are analyzing the environment, not the patients. Our process is a subscription-based model where we sample monthly. We'll sample the client site, transport the samples to our own laboratory, process them, and give the hospitals actionable results within 18 hours as a prelim. In terms of the reporting, the hospitals will receive a heat map and a germ risk profile that will give executives the information they need to make immediate modifications to their cleaning practices. This will allow them to use typically scarce cleaning resources in terms of labor as well as cleaning products, especially with the supply chains during the pandemics, to really make an impact in reducing those infections. So in terms of our market, I want to point out that Culture Well is actually industry agnostic. However, we've identified healthcare as our target market because that's who's experiencing the most pain. So our overall market is all consumer-facing entities, but we have identified 800,000 healthcare facilities. So that's hospitals, that's skilled nursing facilities, that's nursing homes, dialysis facilities. And we have a serviceable addressable market of 500 potential customers within 100 miles of Ann Arbor. In terms of our projected revenue, as soon as we launch, we expect to have revenue positivity. But we are currently limited in the sense that we can only do 3 clients a month because everything we're doing right now is manual. So we'll be looking for funding to automate those and all of those lab processes. So where are we at right now? As I said, we're doing manual methods, but we do have a paid pilot, so we have traction. We are currently bootstrapping absolutely everything. We have a contract signed for laboratory space, so we're ready to go. In terms of our seed round, we're looking to drastically increase capacity, as well as it will enable us to launch air and water samplings, as well as really get traction in terms of our logistics. And then Series A will eventually include aggressive expansion, including full automation of the laboratory so we can achieve economies of scale. My name is Sarah Beatty. I'm the founder and CEO of Culture Well. I've got 10 years in healthcare and environmental laboratories in terms of my experience. I've had 8+ years of laboratory leadership experience. And the reason I was able to bring this technology forward is because typically environmental labs and healthcare labs don't talk to each other. But because I've worked in both, I've brought the best of the tech from both of those worlds into a solution that really works. And we've had the opportunity to verify our technology, and it does work. So we've already de-risked that. I'm actively seeking a co-founder. We have one potential co-founder that is currently contracting with us right now. So hopefully that will continue to go well. My name is Sarah Beatty. I'm the founder and CEO of Culture Well. Thank you.
Nice presentation. So you laid out in your model that you will be able to bring automation into the laboratory.
That's correct.
How will you scale this from the collection side?
So the collection model is a contractor-based model where we have a certification process, and then we'll have regionally based contractors that can go and sample our contracted sites.
Okay, and is this a high skill position, or is this something where you could train someone to do correct collections and then get them into the lab? So with a distributed sales force or a distributed workforce like this, if you are able to achieve the lab automation, you can scale the workforce out in the field?
Yeah, there's absolutely no concern about that, assuming they'll pass our course. Okay,
thank you.
Great presentation. I really appreciated the kind of by stage milestone approach. So that's will be helpful as you raise money.
Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about how you position the kind of it works aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
How much can you have you been able to indicate is because of services and improper cleaning techniques or policies versus maybe more human error, things that you literally couldn't tell by a swab that it goes through your technology?
So without talking too much about the technology directly, there's a lot that went into the research and development to launch this product, because the a major problem right now, and the reason that hospitals tend not to do routine environmental sampling is because the tech that we have is about 20 to 30 years stuck in the past, and there's nobody innovating in that particular part of the sector. So this is wide open. And in fact, it actually used to be regulated by the CDC that all hospitals do environmental monitoring, but that requirement was removed because there was no reliable technology to do so. So in terms of our market positioning, eventually we'll be going after reinstating that regulatory requirement because we know that we can demonstrate recovery.
Okay, appreciate that for sure. Have you been able to kind of show any KPIs or decrease in infection rate, anything like that, or is that part of your pilot that's coming up?
That's absolutely part of the pilot process. And one of the things that most hospitals require, as I'm sure you guys are familiar with, is they really want a white paper before they move forward with a contract. And so our goals is to actually get 2 additional clients for a pilot. And that will help us demonstrate, broad ability to reduce these infection numbers.
Okay, and last question, do you know how much you're going to charge for this on a subscription basis?
Yes, I do. It's actually on a per sample basis. So depending on the scale of the facility, the samples are $75 per sample. An average facility will have about 35 sample locations in any given event. And some facilities have opted for pre and post sampling to actually help validate implementation of other cleaning technologies or even hand washing interventions. So you can actually kind of get a quantitative ROI using our data.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Great presentation, Sarah. My question is on the workflow side, both the sample collection and kind of the process of sale. So is it a real-time continuous sample collection process? Just want to kind of get some clarity on that. And at the hospital side, I'm assuming there is a current standard of cleanliness. So how do you convince them that it's not up to par and that they need to kind of bring you guys on because they are not hitting the bar on the cleanliness side?
Yeah, so to answer your first question, the way the sampling works is that we go and sample each location on a monthly basis. So there is that travel cost, which is why we've settled on the distributed model for the samplers. But then talking about like the standard of cleanliness, there really isn't one. What's happening is that most hospitals and environmental service workers that clean the rooms have about 30 minutes to flip and clean an entire patient room after discharge. And I don't think there's anybody in this room that could actually clean a room that fast. And so because of these administrative pressures, the cleaners often only clean what's visibly dirty. And if a surface isn't visibly dirty, it tends to not be cleaned prior to the next patient. And that shows in the data because patients are 6 times more likely to get the infection that the person in the room had before them. And so that really shows the direct and immediate threat of this problem.
Do you have any data to show that your solution can make a significant impact on the hospital-acquired infections pre-implementation of your solution and post?
So that will be as part of our pilot in the white paper. However, looking into other people who have had some activity in the market using a way lower tech and less informative technology, they have always had very good retention in terms of people coming back for each month. And the people that I've done customer discovery with had said that they were likely to stay on for a year or more because there's seasonal variations in germs. You have new contractors coming in to clean. So there's always a need to continually evaluate your process.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Listening to these presentations just reminds me why I love boot camp so much. I mean, all of these people know so much about their area of expertise, especially after going through boot camp. And another reason I really love boot camp is because I get to hear about ideas for new businesses that I never would have imagined. And that is demonstrated by our final presenter, Filos. Aditya Sanjay will present for Filos, and you'll see why I could never have imagined this particular business, but they're really tapping a potentially huge market. Come on up.
Thanks for the intro, Lee. Hey everybody, we're Team Filos. My name is Aditya. I'm joined today by Adam and Clay, who's joining us virtually. So I'm sure many of you guys have heard of companies such as FanDuel and DraftKings through various media ads and through TV, and it serves as a testament to show, the rapid growth of the sports betting and fantasy sports industries. The rapid legalization has resulted in 17.8 million people placing bets on sports in just the last year. And that represents a 206% increase from 2019. And that's not to mention the whopping 60 million users that are actively playing in fantasy sports leagues also in just the last year. And what's interesting about this is that these are the types of people who have now started entering the stock market, and they're bringing with them their gambling as strategies. They're able to do so because the stock market has started to open up through parallel trends in the industry that have opened up the investment world to these newcomers. So these newcomers are the types of people who are aged 18 to 25. They're young professionals. They're college aged. And they tend to take part in these things such as sports betting and fantasy sports. And so when they start to invest in stocks, they're bringing with them these similar strategies in that they make frequent investments with high risk tolerance, and they tend to prefer a social setting. And so to address this problem, we built Filos. Filos is a mobile-first gaming platform that allows users to bet on the stock market through custom stock-based challenges. Users can create a fantasy portfolio of stocks and bet on their performance against each other. Think fantasy sports, but applied to the stock market. So how does this actually work? Well, users can basically allocate different stocks to a fantasy lineup, similar to the way that they would do the same thing for a lineup for fantasy sports in ESPN. These stocks aren't actually invested in, but rather they mirror the real-time performance of these stocks in the actual market. Users still have a stake in the game through the customizable buy-in, with the winner of the challenges winning the overall betting pool. Now, one of the core values of these challenges is the fact that they're very customizable. Users can alter parameters, change game modes, and this really allows us to stay afresh of the user, leading us to have an active user base and repeated use. Feedback from initial users tests indicated just this, that users found our product welcoming. They found it that's something that they would be willing to use not only once, but multiple times. Not only did we learn this, but we learned that they'd be willing to pay for it through a business model that consists of a 10% rake combined with a premium subscription. So to elaborate on this, we plan on taking a 10% rake on the betting pools as revenue. Now, this is an industry standard that is used by companies such as FanDuel, such as DraftKings, and it's something that our customer base is already accustomed to. In addition, as we plan on expanding and establishing our community, we plan on offering a premium version that allows users to have access to these premium insights into analytical data, similar to the way that ESPN allows you to do so. Now, this allows us to augment our competitive technology with these insights, incentivizing users to get that competitive edge, and also allowing us to have a recurring model on top of our volume-dependent take rate. And we plan on making this happen through a go-to-market that consists of the following three. One is starting off with the university students and local communities, many of which we have a direct line of access to. Secondly, we plan on implementing a revenue sharing system with financial influencers on TikTok and Instagram, also many of whom we have personal connects with. And thirdly, we plan on scaling through partnerships with brokerages, allowing users to integrate their portfolios with the Filos platform and really create an entire ecosystem. So finally, to back up a little bit about how we got here, where we are today, Filos actually originated out of a product that was looking to bring some of the investment data used in Wall Street, these modeling techniques, to the beginner investor. Feedback from our initial beta tests indicated that this wasn't really something that people were really wanted to use multiple times. It was more viewed as a novelty. So this is what spurred some of the customer discovery that led us to the pivots to make us turn into what Filos is today. Where are we today? Well, we're currently in the process of development. We're fully prototyped, and we're planning on sourcing an initial focus group for launch. To back it up is the team consisting of myself, Adam, and Clay, who have experience in investing, as investors and inside partners, as a software engineer at Amazon, and as a financial analyst at Molina Healthcare. At the end of the day, the new investor invests largely for short-term value with much more frequent investments, and Filos is the first platform that caters to their needs. Thank you. Adam will be joining me to take any questions you guys might have.
Great. Thank you, Aditya. Really interesting. Really want to understand more about who your customer is, right? Because I imagine most day traders, folks that are kind of riding this, kind of GameStop wave of the stock market, that's where they get their kicks, right? So now you're adding in another layer of this kind of fantasy component. Have you found a real desire to kind of double down on this, on their exposure? Because you're not offering actual investment opportunities. This is more of a game on the side, if I'm understanding it correctly.
Right, yeah. And so I think the interesting thing here is that you have people who are already betting on sports and things like that, right? And then you have people who are betting on the stock market through this sort of like gambling. I mean, they view it as gambling on the stock market. But the interesting thing that we found through our customer discovery was that people want to invest against each other. And a lot of the time that they're even engaging with the stock market is so that they can one-up their friends. They can talk to their friends and say like, oh, I did better than you. And so the reason for this gamified experience is so that they can experience the stock market in that way and really be able to make, like whatever investments they want. And as long as they're doing better than their friends, then they can still have that I told you so moment, which doesn't really happen when they're investing against the market.
Okay, I guess that was my question before you answered it. Like, is it not enough that you made the right bets in the stock market? Now you're saying that your customer is looking for additional outlets to socialize their acumen.
Yeah, exactly. I think that was the biggest thing that we learned from our customer discovery. I mean, we initially said, we'll give you guys the modeling data and everything that is used by Wall Street so you can one up your market. But everybody, like the response we got from our customers was, well, yeah, that's cool, but we we don't really need to do our analysis. We just want to make the risky bet and then brag to our friends that, I made that bet on the market. So yeah.
Got it.
Okay, yeah. So again, I think you answered it, but let me just make sure I understand. Instead of me just, buying a basket of securities that I feel will perform well, I'm not going to buy those securities. Instead, I'm going to model those securities, and I'll have bragging rights. But is there a financial upside? I know that there's the subscription fee, and you guys take the 10%. But what's my motivation or are you thinking that people are either long, short, or in derivatives, or have a strategy with their portfolio, and they're using this as a tool on top of that portfolio to represent how they're outperforming these other people?
Yeah, I can take this question. So, for example, these challenges would be much cheaper than actually investing in the market. If you wanted to test new strategies, try new analytics, you could test it on our platform for a much smaller amount by betting maybe $5 on a challenge against your friends. And it would allow you to not only compete against your friends and socialize with them, but also test your strategies.
And so if your customer discovery, did you find that people weren't in the position to be long on securities, and they were sort of doing this in lieu of the ability to actually invest? Or they had the capital, they just chose this as a sort of lower risk alternative?
Well, now with Robinhood, you could technically invest $5 into the market, but at the end of the day, if you invest $5, you're really not going to make that much money, and you're not getting that same competitive social element from these challenges. And that's a really big value proposition, is the fact that you're working with your friends or competing against your friends.
Okay, one last question, and I'll let Prem ask. And coincidentally, at the Angel Summit yesterday, we had someone from the SEC as one of our speakers. What's your regulatory exploration been on this?
Yeah, so obviously we've done a lot of research in this area, and number one, users aren't directly investing into the market through our app, and we are not providing financial advice. Number two, the challenges are not simply based on chance. It's a skill-based game based on the skill of allocating a portfolio. And at the end of the day, the most skilled investor is going to win challenges in the long run. And we're also working with a lawyer who specializes in gaming, and he feels confident that we can release this product to the market.
Okay, thank you. Prem.
Aditya and Adam, good presentation. Kind of in the same vein as Ben and Bill. Actually, one of your last slides, a bullet, was a very interesting partnership with brokerages. Could you speak to that a little bit and how you could potentially monetize on those partnerships?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the interesting thing is we're not trying to replace investing as an avenue for people. The idea is people already have portfolios in Robinhood, in Webull, in TD, et cetera. The idea is that people can now bet on those portfolios against their friends. They can import those portfolios into our platform, and now we have like an ecosystem where it's kind of integrated with everybody else's investing tools that they already use. Opportunities for us to make revenue on that would just be kind of like a B2B fee with Robinhood, where we could say like, hey, our users can come to you, or your users can come to us, and it's kind of like a partnership in that sense.
Thank you.
All right, nice job.
Thank you, guys.
All right, we've come to a special moment where we will ask the judges to please stand up and join Lee in the judges' deliberation room. Oh, last notes. I was like, last notes, Ben. And in the meantime, it is an exciting moment for me to introduce to our stage our keynote speaker, Scott LeVictor. And he's going to be talking with us a little bit about his startup journey and entrepreneurship. Yeah, what happened? Tell us all about it. So let's welcome Scott.
Thanks, Margarita.
Oh, thank you.
It's good to be on the other side of this after many years.
All right. So thanks for joining us here today.
My pleasure.
Yeah. Okay, so you were with Arbor Insight, and you were recently acquired.
We were, yeah.
Last year.
New Year's Eve.
Okay, so tell us, well, actually, before we even begin into that point, Scott LeVictor, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you find boot camp?
So I wanted to move to Ann Arbor for a long time. I worked in the government. I wanted to leave government and start my own business. And came to Ann Arbor, was able to meet up with the co-founder, had a great idea, and came to Spark and said, hey, we need help. Where do you start? And for us, fortunately, the team rallied, and at the time, Victor Bratnaris ran boot camp. Mm-hmm. And after a few calls with him, he easily convinced us that the place to start was Entrepreneur Boot Camp.
What year was that?
That was a day ago. Yeah, it was 2013. 2013 when we started our journey.
Awesome. Okay, so you started boot camp, and when we start boot camp, we start with an idea, an idea on the back of a beverage napkin, or maybe you already had a prototype at that point. But as you went through that, and here you are now, what did it look like then, and then what happened during the transformation, how it ended up now? And what, tools did you learn in boot camp? Did you reapply? Did you fall on your face? How many times did you pivot? I mean.
The lost count, right?
But that's the journey, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So we entered boot camp with what I thought was a great idea. I mean, we all think our ideas are great when we come to boot camp. And we actually refined that during boot camp. The community really helped us do that. We got to the point where we had our first trial customer, and they were excited, and we were excited to provide a service. But then stuff got real, and I found out that my co-founder and I just did not agree on much in terms of how to bring our product to market. And so with the support of the community here at Spark and at U of M, we decided to walk away. But luckily, or fortunately, or not, depending on how you look at it, I had another idea, and Ann Arbor Startup Weekend was occurring just a couple weeks later. I had interns, I had office space, and what I thought was another great idea. And we ended up being one of the finalists at Ann Arbor Startup Weekend. Mm-hmm. It came back to Spark with a new idea, with new energy, but applying those same tools of customer discovery, right? Getting out there and saying, hey, is this something that you will buy?
Yeah.
And dated my potential co-founder for a while that I met through Ann Arbor Startup Weekend.
Yeah.
And eventually brought that product to market, and then went through a whole series of pivots, some big, some small. Realized we had a scalable product. We had some defensible IP. and then set
Sign
out.
me up. Yeah.
Yeah, right, right. And we had some early traction in the security industry, physical security industry, with some troubles figuring out how to get that sold, right? How to establish a buying process that worked for that market, right? Because we're not just selling a product, we're selling, a solution that requires, the buying process, the customer success process, right? That next stage that you'll go through, right? So that didn't go well, so we kind of retreated back into a market that was more familiar to our product. Not necessarily to us, but to our product, and that was compliance and ethics. That started to go well. We actually found product market fit, but it was down market. We didn't want to be a commodity solution. A little arrogance from my previous background in the intelligence community creeped in there.
Well, that's all really relevant skills and knowledge to actually have when you're thinking about commercialization.
Right.
It helps de-risk you and understand like the strategy of how to approach. How do you go through that process?
Absolutely. But we use those same tools over and over again, like the customer discovery process, listening, even if we didn't like the message. But still some arrogance crept through, and we decided to pivot once again into insurance. Got some initial interesting traction. COVID hit, but fortunately for us, about the same time that COVID hit, we had our acquirer knock on the door. We had several inquiries about that time. Didn't pick up the phone or read the email the first time, respond to the email. But fortunately, we did the second time. And, after a few months, we were acquired.
All right. Well, two questions that kind of percolated in my brain as we were going through that. So you found a co-founder, and you kind of, dated, you courted, you kind of, figured out how your vibe was with this person.
Right.
How did you find that? Like, did you go to an event? Did you connection through another entrepreneur, friend, a mentor? Like, that's one big challenge that I see a lot of entrepreneurs have in our ecosystem. They got to find some other kind of founder, whether it be someone that's more in the business and sales, or a technical engineer, a scientist. So how did you find yours?
Yeah, so lessons learned, right? That first co-founder and I just did not meet up in the middle at all. So I found my co-founder actually through Ann Arbor Startup Weekend.
Okay.
He and his partner actually expressed interest in my startup idea, but I didn't rush into it. The first time I kind of rushed into it, I was excited, right? Get in there and let's get rolling. But we took time. We met here, right over in that corner, actually several times over the period of about 3 months. And we talked through, what are my expectations of you? What are your expectations of me? What are the opportunities here? What do I expect you to do day to day?
Yeah.
I really got into the nuts and bolts of how we would work as co-founders, spent some time socially, and it ended up clicking. And actually found my CTO the same way. A Hacker X event hosted here at Ann Arbor Spark.
Nice.
Somebody who also had former government experience said, hey, I like your idea, let's talk. He became my CTO.
That's a magical story.
It seemed like every time I put out a need to the Ann Arbor community, and the Southeast Michigan community, they responded, which is brilliant.
That's an amazing point. Being an entrepreneur in my own time too, I find this ecosystem really takes care of its own, and I'm originally from Texas. It's another reason why I've never really left. It really is a very cohesive and just excited ecosystem to just be who we are, and here we are evolving as it is.
Yeah, absolutely takes a village, and Southeast Michigan and Ann Arbor Spark really provide that. Sounds like a commercial, but it's true.
All right, so when you were going through the exit, or you're getting acquired, like, where were you? Where were you in your business when that all kind of happened? And yeah.
Yeah, well, we were hurting. We had bootstrapped. We had some interest in investment. I'd actually travel out to California to talk to a well-known firm. But I wanted to stay in control, right? It's again, control and ego come into play a lot, and we got to let those go sometimes as entrepreneurs.
That's a very valid point.
So we were hurting for cash. We had we had some good traction with the insurance sector now. But I started this company so it would have a life, right? We discovered actually through Professor Brophy's class that we didn't have just a good product, but a product that was scalable in ways we didn't fully appreciate.
You did that class too.
Great capstone
Awesome.
experience, right? And it was a student presenting that made us realize, wow, we've got something more here. We actually ended up with 3 products built into one.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Which is hard when you're doing a bootstrapped company.
Yeah, that's a lot of focus
yeah.
going into 3 different things at the same time.
But again, the community echoed back when we spoke out for need. And so that that company that reached out to us saw that not only did we have just an app and a dashboard, but we had a product that could scale and serve their customers' pain points over the long term. And that's what was really exciting about that acquisition is we started with, hey, that's neat, but let's first talk about, do we view the market and our customer pain points the same way? Foundationally, do we put the customer first? Do we put our team first? Do we practice servant leadership? So it was really culture first, which was nice.
Yeah.
We had other calls with private equity firms, and they just, how much money and how much money now? Understandable. But this was a different type of conversation. And so that actually took months. So we started there. But 6 months later is when, on New Year's Eve about 3:30, when we actually signed not that was intense at all, but we took our time. They asked tough questions. We did visits and went through a very fulsome process to get to the end point.
Awesome. That was great. Just kind of like hearing, a little bit of a story. There were a few different challenges that you talked about, through the evolution of the startup. Besides the ones that you've presented, are there any that really stick out to you that you can just remember, like, this is how I came out and here it was?
Yeah, I think, one that jumps to mind is customer discovery and being honest with yourself and your team about customer discovery. If that product isn't basically selling itself and people aren't excited, if your person on the inside of the company isn't just running to their boss's desk and we need this now, or that customer isn't finding that app right now and excited about it, you might want to pause and slow things down, right? Yeah. We had some good customer feedback on each of our pivots. Mm-hmm. Too many, perhaps you might say, but that feedback didn't necessarily always result in checks. And our first check of significance came from a company, a large local company here in Southeast Michigan, a large bank. Didn't end up being our ideal customer going forward. So that kind of took us aside. So being honest with yourself about customer discovery and listening. When I talk to entrepreneurs and do some mentoring both here and in Northern Michigan, I key into those entrepreneurs who are listening. Mm-hmm. If you're listening and not talking, that's great that you have a product, but I want you to listen to what your customer is saying. That, for me, has been a pivotal point of success. Like I said, we did customer discovery, but we are also arrogant enough to say, hey, you need this. Yeah. And in the end, what that meant is we were ahead of the market. Not a great place to be. Now the market's catching up with our product. But being ahead of the market is, painful in its own ways.
I concur, definitely. All right, so thank you for sharing all those tidbits. But now I'm just going to ask you my final questions of what other tips would you tell entrepreneurs, innovators, founders, anybody who has an idea from the process of what you've learned? What would you tell them back? Hindsight.
First, take that first step. Reach out. Ask for help. That's why we're all here. We took that step of reaching out, in this case, to Ann Arbor Spark, and they responded vociferously with support from their community. Ask for help. Every time I asked for help, whether it was Lee or Bill or Charlotte or Stuart or Ted, the list goes on and on and on of people who I said, hey, Chris, lend me a hand. What do you think about this? Let's have a conversation, right? So that's one thing. So ask for help. The second thing I would say would be, when you have those conversations, make sure that the person is asking good questions to start with. Context is king, context is queen, right? And so there's a lot of people out there who want you to succeed, who are willing to provide advice. But if they're not first slowing down and asking you good questions to understand you, understand your business, understand where you are in your journey, you might get advice even from trusted colleagues that probably is going to steer you in the wrong direction. In my case, an example is I was meeting with somebody for over a year. And I said, hey, we want to try out this. And he said, no. I did something very similar to that. It won't. You got to stick to your guns, Scott. Tens of thousands of dollars. And many months later, I went back to him and I said, hey, this isn't working. I was like, well, yeah, but we didn't do it that way. We did it the way that this other way. And well, that's the way that I said. So it ended up being expedient advice. So look out for expedient advice. Even with those that you trust and count upon. Everybody, it doesn't mean that it's malintent or they didn't want to help you. It's just they've got a lot going on too. So slow those conversations down. Make sure that they're thoughtful and eventually fruitful. And then team. I'm a Spartan, so, but I know the team, right? We're here in Michigan's backyard. It is really, you've heard this before, but it's all about execution. It absolutely is. If you're working 6.5 days a week, 14-hour days, and Charlotte knows this, first one and last one out, you don't want to go to bed when you do get to go to bed, thinking, can I trust this person? Are they going to follow through, right? And so really take your time and think through who you want to be on your team, who you can trust to be on your team, who's willing to upskill themselves to deliver on their promises. That's a very big deal.
That's very thoughtful and very true. We really try to articulate, I guess, those types of decisions, but helping them really get adjusted to each other and making sure that each are feeling comfortable with each other, at least how we teach moving forward. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Yeah. Any of you want to ask any questions? Now that you're in the hot seat? And I just wanted to let people know, because I know there's a number of people that are tuning in. Scott keeps referring to Charlotte. Charlotte is a special person in our incubator that supports a number of our clients. We think about her as kind of our incubator mom. And so she's here pretty late, as well as the entrepreneurs. So it's really nice to see a friendly face and kind of just have that incubator, like, homey feeling while you're here. So just giving that some background. All right. Yes.
Thank you for being here today. My question is, so you mentioned various challenges that you encountered, whether it was co-founder or advice, but what is like a challenge that has stuck with you that at that moment maybe felt like the worst thing to occur, but you learned from it and grew from it? Or I guess, was there a challenge like that?
So her question, I was going to make sure to say it out loud in case we didn't catch it, but growing from co-founders, was there a situation where you made a decision, but then it didn't go so well? And how did you handle that?
I lost count of the number of decisions that didn't go well. I think, what stuck with me is resilience. Don't give up. Be resourceful. I mean, if you want to succeed, this might not be your only idea. It might not even be your best idea, right? But resourcefulness and resilience, staying with the problem, and there's going to be a solution. Reach out to people like Melanie, like Ted, like Bill. They're going to be there for you to help you through that. But for me, the most visceral reaction I have to your question, in a good way, is team. Really, just it's tough to make a mistake with a vital or a core team member. Take your time. Make sure that marriage, because it really is a marriage, works out. Is foundationally aligned.
I'll add on to that, and what you're saying is correct. The culture at which you create with your co-founders or your very, young team members are really going to then be extrapolated onto the other team members that you bring on, and ultimately the foundation and the fiber at which everybody comes together and wants to work with you. And we all know through startups, there's a lot of hours, there's a lot of blood, sweat, tears, and everything else. So an emotional baggage that comes together with it all. So making sure to create that culture from the beginning, and that you're eye to eye on the same level, and you're transparent with one another with co-founders, is something very, very critical in the very beginning, and to be maintained throughout the different stages of the company as it grows.
And that will come across to your early customers too, because they're not just buying a product. They're not investing in just product. They're investing in a team.
Yeah.
You're selling them a vision at this point. They're going to look at your co-founder, look at your CTO, look at your security person, whoever that might be, doing your cybersecurity. Say, hey, is this a team I'm willing to invest in at this early stage? You'll do enough pitches to the same company, especially if you're doing enterprise sales, that they're going to see your entire team multiple times. And if you're not on the same page and expressing the same sentiments, the same ideas, that sale is going to be tough to close.
All right. Well, last question. What will you do now?
I actually took some time off this summer.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It was needed after many years of startup experience. Right now, I'm focused on supporting the Native American business community in northern Michigan.
Oh, wow.
I'm a member of the Sault Ste. Marie tribe of Chippewa Indians. I'm proud to say I'm on both their board for their nascent Chamber of Commerce we call Sioux Tribe Business Alliance. I'm also on their board of directors for Sioux Tribe Incorporated, which has a number of for-profit businesses underneath it. And so I'm in the process of we're hiring our first CEO
Wow.
and getting involved in government contracting. So the lessons that are learned here at Ann Arbor Spark are reverberating throughout the state.
That's wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, let's thank Scott for his time and his wisdom. Thank you so much for
Very
being
generous.
here.
My pleasure.
All right, it is that moment where we will be announcing our winners. First, before we begin, did we want to hear any comments from the judges and as their reflections? I'll go ahead and start that process. So I'll let the judges kind of continue from here. Ben, do you want to start?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, 4 really fantastic presentations. Diverse in not only the teams but the technologies and the industries. So really cool to see the fruits of your labor over the last few months. So thank you, everyone. First of all, so we're going to provide some feedback in the order that the presentations were given. So I'm going to start with Imagine Chat. So again, I think what you guys did really well was helping us understand the problem here, and I think all of the judges really felt the problem as all being parents and understanding where your where your kind of addressable market is. And I liked the kind of Q&A discussion about where this can really go, and some of the strengths that you're kind of already leading with in terms of identifying where you're different from other technologies on the market, and how even your kind of base case of the proprietary or public domain opportunities available are still a competitive advantage. Things that I would work on, for what is kind of being pitched as a visual experience and a very much experiential technology, we didn't really get to see what that experience looked like. So I would bake that into your pitch and help me understand a little bit more of what it's like to use the technology. Yeah, I mean, I think that was, kind of the main point of feedback. Also, I had one question in terms of that you might get asked, presenting screen time, additional screen time as a way to potentially solve a tough moment with child rearing. A lot of parents might push back on that idea. So just kind of firming up an answer there, I think would be really helpful. But otherwise, really fantastic presentation. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, thank you. I'm going to go ahead, and I actually don't know the Lee, I'm going to ask you to join me up here.
Preem is up.
Yeah, Preem is up to go over helogenica.
Oh, okay, my bad.
Hi, I don't have audio.
You should
We
be
can
good.
hear him.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Perfect. Thank you. Sorry about that.
No worries.
So Helogenica team, fantastic presentation. Very, very interesting space that you're looking to disrupt. Just some feedback. I think one of the things is the cost for genetic analysis is coming down very, very quickly. And so I think that's one of the things you have to keep an eye out for is like, how do you prevent this from becoming a race to the bottom, right? There's several other companies trying to address the same problem. And cancer diagnostics is a pretty broad space. Are you going to kind of focus on certain types of cancers? Or are you going to go after the whole cancer space? And so maybe some thought towards that end, having a larger data set, and how will you curate that data set would be my feedback to the team.
Thanks, Preem. And next, Bill will give some feedback to CultureWell.
All right, great. And let me just take the opportunity to say, I want everyone here tonight that's competing in this to understand that this is the beginning of your journey and relationship with Spark. So thank you. We always value you going through this exercise. Certainly we're very interested in continuing with all of you. So with that said, CultureWell. So nice job in your presentation. I was very impressed with your subject matter expertise and knowledge that came through. I think it was clear what the value proposition is, what you're capable of doing. I appreciated your answers to the question. One other thing that you should be aware of is, we do have some resources in town. For example, there's a company called Redbud Solutions that was acquired with Beck and Dickinson. The founder of that company is still in town. And please look into the programs that the NSF has in Ann Arbor. They could be very helpful in your ability to secure SBIR grants and other types of resources like that. Some questions that I had. I appreciate the healthcare facility as being sort of a high pain. Sort of like you mentioned the shark bite. That's good. However, as I mentioned in a previous presentation, that's going to be a rather high stakes beachhead market. So there could be lower consequence, ways to prove out the specificity and your abilities as a service provider. And then the word that kept popping into my mind was basically an audit. So as someone who's going to start his annual audit on Monday, I'm not afraid of audits. They are how you prove that what you say you're doing is true. And so, randomization or spot checks or, some other way to really solidify it as a value and you speak the language of, and I bring up the hospital CFO only because I know a lot of really tough ones, but that you'd be speaking their language. So that could be something that you could incorporate that I think might be helpful. And then the other thing that I would suggest that you address is, there are technologies in hospitals that are monitoring compliance with, cleanliness standards, things like that. If you can verbalize that you would be concurrent with those technologies as opposed to having to displace one of those technologies, that just, you're making the whole system more robust versus having somebody go through the pain of switching, which is a real pain. So, but good job.
And finally, Ben will give us feedback on Philo's presentation.
Great. So I think this was my favorite Q&A of the four, because I think we really got engaged in the, just trying to understand exactly what you guys are building, which speaks to the novelty of the idea. I think you guys did a really great job of identifying, two kind of industries that are both growing and getting a lot of attention and crafting a solution that could potentially, be offered to, those kind of concentric circles. Now, it does still feel a bit like a niche opportunity, right? You need people that are kind of focused on the daily fantasy side, people that are interested in exposure in the stock market. How big is that Venn diagram? I think that's still on you guys to kind of prove out and understand. So again, is this a niche product or a niche market? How can you potentially expand that, or lean into you got what you got, and potentially that just makes it an easier marketing opportunity. So those are things that I would kind of implore you to consider. But I did like your answer on the SEC question, because you're going to get that question every meeting that you walk into. So understanding that and staying on top of it would be great. So it sounds like you guys have already put some thought into it.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right.
And thank you, judges. Great questions, great deliberations, very thoughtful, and appreciate you giving the feedback. So without further ado, we will announce the winners. We actually have 3 prizes tonight, which Margarita will tell you about, and I will announce the winners. Third prize will be Imagine Chat.
So I don't have a check, but we took on a sponsorship from UHY, which will be providing accounting services, and they will be connecting with you here very shortly, but we were excited to have them here and providing you service. So congratulations. All right, I'm gonna go and grab the other check.
And in second place, with $10,000 investment from Spark, we have Sarah Beatty and CultureWell.
Should I take off my mask? Oh, yeah, we can do for what? Just hold your breath. All right.
Thank you.
And finally, our first place winner with a $25,000 investment from Spark is Helogenica with Snehal Patel.
Good luck cashing that in. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. That is our show for this evening. Congratulations to the winners, and thank you for the pitchers for your hard work and all the effort that you put in. You really have carved out a very different story to where you first started to where you are today, so we are very proud of you. Thank you to the judges for making it here tonight and for thoughtful insight and just really care that you just gave to these startups. Thank you, Scott, for joining us and all of your wisdom. Thank you, Lee, and thank you for the mentors, NEF.
The coaches.
Yes.
I had a teaching team that's absolutely awesome. Melanie DeVries, Scott Taylor, and Neil Kane. And with all the mentors, I hope some of them are online tonight. We had quite a few. We could not do boot camp without you. So you're all what makes boot camp great, and I thank you all.
And before we go, closing it up, wanted to also thank the Spark team and a lot of Incubator Mom over there. We wouldn't be able to deliver the programs that we do today, any day, really, to our clients, our entrepreneurs, and founders of the ecosystem. And before we go, just wanted to encourage everybody to check out the rest of the a2Tech360 events that are going on this week. You can still register. And lastly, if you're listening in and you've got an idea and you're curious on where it could go, you want to hit us up. We are recruiting for our next boot camp. We're going to get a little dirty all over again and start the process. But anyway, hit us up at information@AnnArborUSA.org, or if you're interested in a2Tech360, you can look us up at a2Tech360.com. And thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Have a great evening.